Welcome to the Australian Hiker Podcast, Australia's longest running hiking podcast, downloaded over 1.2 million times worldwide and providing you with an Australian perspective on all things hiking. We're your hosts, Tim and Jill Savage, coming to you from Ngunnawal and Ngambri country.
In this week's episode 327, brought to you by Australian Hiker, we catch up with Rob from Australian pack manufacturer Whippa to find out all about this uniquely Australian product. We hope you enjoy. If you'd like to help support Australian Hiker and this podcast, there are a couple of ways that you can help us out. Firstly, by subscribing on your podcast host of choice so that each episode is available as soon as it's published. And if you have the opportunity, leave us a 5-star review. Another way to support us is go to the Australian Hiker website at www.australianhiker.com.au and click on the Support Us page and buy us a coffee. You can do a one-off donation or become a monthly supporter. All donations are greatly appreciated and help us to continue producing this podcast and blog. Now let's get on to today's episode. In 2022, Summit Gear realised that the Australian market was being underserved by ultralight performance packs and set about sourcing the most advanced materials to make purpose-built packs that were lighter, stronger and better. And so Whippa packs were born. You'll have to forgive me in this episode. I tend to geek out a bit about the technology behind producing some of our hiking gear. And for those of you that like a bit more of the technical detail, this one it goes beyond just the normal how to make packs in Australia and goes a bit more into the detail. Rob, thanks for taking the time to chat with us about Whippa packs.
Well, thanks, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here, and I think a podcast like the Australian Hiker is an excellent place for to talk about Whippa packs. So, thanks for the interview.
Now, before we start talking about Whippa packs specifically, tell us a bit about yourself and your connection to hiking and the outdoors.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I've always been a very outdoors sort of person. I'm an avid trail runner, so do a lot of trail running these days. But I guess as a kid, I used to go hiking with friends, and we'd go out camping. From about the age of about 12 or 13, we started doing that and going camping on our own, which was always a lot of fun. Later on in my teens, I was doing things like cadets and stuff like that, and we're always out doing long hikes and camping out, and with the hoochies and all that sort of stuff. So it was kind of part of me growing up. And I guess as I got older and life sort of got in the road, there's probably a big pause in my in my outdoors activities as I started to raise kids and grow a career. But later on, as the kids started to grow up, we'd go and do hikes with my daughter. We've done like the 6-foot track. We've done the overland track together. And I've also done a lot of hiking, a bit of hiking in Europe and stuff. And generally I've linked it up with a bit of mountaineering and climbing as well. So that's kind of the background of what I've done and what I like to do. So yeah, it's a bit all over the place. Combination of trail running, hiking, climbing, a little bit of mountaineering, and more recently even ski mountaineering as well. No, I fell in love with it. It just was amazing. And I went there in 2022 to climb the Matterhorn, and weather didn't play ball with me, so I didn't get the opportunity. But back in 2023, there's a trail running race that goes right around the Mont Blanc Massif. It starts in Chamonix, goes into Switzerland, into Italy, through Switzerland. And I got into that, and then I thought, since I'm there, I'm going to have another go at trying to climb the Matterhorn. So in 2023, I managed to climb the Matterhorn and then do the UTMB race right around the Mont Blanc Massif.
We had a similar sort of experience. We were going to climb Mont Blanc, and some of the worst weather came in, and in fact there was a group up there that actually lost a couple of climbers because they decided to press on, and it was some of the worst weather they had in years. So we were cancelled, but some people decided to persist and keep on going. So with so many brands of packs on the market, why did you decide to create Whippa packs?
It's a great question. I think maybe it might give a full context, maybe a little bit of background. I was in the corporate world and was doing corporate gigs, and I was getting very frustrated in that environment. In 2015, I finished my MBA, and I was looking for something different to do, and I ended up coming across a company called Summit Gear. And the reason I purchased that business, so they were an outdoor retailer, but the key nugget in there was that they had their own brand and they made packs. And I thought, oh, well, that's something, they'd taken to a certain point. And I thought, well, that's something that maybe I can take and develop. So that was in 2015. And the idea was to quickly move across to, Summit Gear as a business. As life happens, sometimes things get in the road. So that transition actually didn't happen until 2022. And at that time, I'd had Summit Gear as a bit of a side hustle. I had a corporate job and I was quite burnt out. So I took a bit of time off. And it sort of, when I took that time off, it just sort of all the thoughts came back of why I bought Summit Gear in the first place. And it was because they had their own brand and they made stuff. That was, I guess, I had a company that knew how to make packs. Now, they made more traditional canvas rucksacks and backpacks and canyoning packs and stuff like that. And, we also made a lot of bags and equipment for the emergency services. And CareFlight was out there, was one of our customers, and they were starting to exceed all the weights in their helicopters. And they came to us and said, everything that goes in this helicopter has to get much lighter. And so we had a target of reducing the weight of the packs that we had by about 50%. But they still had to be robust. And we ended up looking at different materials and came along, some of the Dyneema composite type fabrics. So that got those types of fabrics into Summit Gear. And it was not long after that, actually, that I was going to do the Matterhorn, and we needed a 35-litre lightweight mountaineering pack. And I was like, well, come on, you own a company that does this. Like, let's think about, we've got these amazing Dyneema fabrics. Let's try and develop something. And I wasn't sure whether we could make something. Like, we were very good at making packs for emergency services and things like that that were very useful and practical. I wasn't sure we could make something that was really aesthetically, what I would consider something that's beautiful but functional and all the things that people want in a pack, that had, could we build that consumer brand that was, I guess, something that was desirable, that was wanted by the general public. And so that was the big question. But when I developed the first prototype, I went over to Europe and I started getting all these comments about the pack that I had. And people were saying, oh, that's one of those ultralight packs. Where'd you get that? That's an amazing bag. I love it. It looks amazing. And even some of the guides that I was with at the time, they were playing with it and they were like, oh, this is fantastic. So that gave me the confidence that we could make something that was, cutting edge, but also functional and practical. And then when I really thought about it, I was like, well, what was Summit Gear known for? And it was about making durable, comfortable packs, certainly not ultralight, but durable and comfortable. I was like, well, and I had a lot of discussions with people in the outdoors, and they were making comments like ultralight packs, like maybe they're not that comfortable, or they're, you look at them sideways and they might fall apart. And so then I started to think about, well, maybe, what about if we tried, if we looked at the opportunity of bringing that, that level of durability and definitely comfort from our experience with Summit Gear, and then combine it with some of these new modern materials and see if we can develop a pack that sat right in the sweet spot, that was ultralight, durable, and comfortable. And that was kind of the thought process that we went through. And I guess the other observation we had is we were seeing that people were bringing, purchasing ultralight hiking packs from the US, like directly, and importing them themselves. And it really felt like that was a part of the market in Australia that was really underserved. And I just looked at some of these packs. I was like, we can do a better job than that. And also making something that's a bit more suitable for the Australian bush. So one of the things, that came obvious quite quickly was, a lot of the packs from the US are kind of designed for the trails that they have in the US. Whereas a lot of Australians, like, they're going off track. The bush can be quite harsh, scratching at the packs, ripping all the nylon and all that sort of stuff. And so, so I wanted to develop a pack that was rugged enough that we could take it off track and would survive those sort of conditions, but still give people that ultralight experience. And so that was the thought. We felt that market was underserved. We felt we had the capabilities, and now we had the materials. And so that's where it started. It went from there, and we made our very first pack. It was launched under the Summit Gear brand we sold the very first one in April of 23.
Going to say, I must admit, you mentioned how long Whippa packs has been around. For me, that 2023-ish period was when I first heard of them. So obviously they must have been known by the locals really well, but it wasn't really a national brand at that stage.
Definitely. And so that's exactly right. And one of the thoughts I had, so we launched it originally on the Summit Gear brand, was, maybe there was a couple of reasons that then I started to think about, maybe we should have a different brand for these ultralight packs. One was that Summit Gear couldn't be trademarked, and I thought it'd be good to have something that we could trademark. The next reason was it was cultural within the company. Like, I wanted people to think differently about what we're doing when we're making these packs. So that's where the tagline stronger, lighter, better came from, to really help focus us on what we're trying to do. And also then to have a dedicated website that we could showcase these packs. And, on the Summit Gear website, we sell a lot of things in Summit Gear, climbing, hiking, the whole range. And they would get lost in that website. And so having like a dedicated website, we felt, to showcase these packs and to help people get educated about them, we thought was important as well. So then we decided to rebrand, and that happened in April of 24.
Okay. Now, why Whippa?
It's a really good question. I guess, I don't know if you've ever tried to come up with a brand name. It's really, really difficult. But, and everyone has an opinion. It is the other thing you realise. No matter what you come up with, some people will say, people will always say, oh, maybe not. But basically every real word that I could think of was taken.
Yep.
And I was struggling to find something where I could get a URL that wasn't used already. And I remembered a conversation we'd had at Summit Gear with one of my staff, Cairo, who helps with the design and manufacturing of the packs. He's a really experienced and hardcore climber. And we were having a discussion about what makes videos go viral. And he said, oh, that's simple. It's easy. You just take big whippers. So it's when people are falling off the cliff and they whip on the rope. And obviously it's spelt it finishes in ER. So I typed in Whippa, and yes, that was gone. But then I thought, oh, maybe if we put an A on it. And suddenly that was available, and I was like, that's good enough for me. And so it was A, the URL was available. B, after I thought about it, it kind of sounded a bit Australian anyway with the A. And it was short. I really liked it was short. And the last thing was I was thinking, well, a whip is fast and light. And so it kind of fitted in with and it had that tie back to the climbing as well. So it had kind of fitted in with the outdoors and what we're trying to represent. And the longer I've had it, the more I love the brand, because it's so easy and it seems to work well.
Yeah, no, I know with when we came up with Australian Hiker, we probably would have spent a year trying to work out what the name was. And in 2000, when we registered, it was in 2014. It was. It was like, what do we call it and what's available? And it's only just gotten harder since. So as you say, trying to register something that makes sense and unique is really hard these days.
It's super hard. And the other thing I thought was in the end, if it's kind of good enough, if people then like the products, they'll affiliate with the brand, And so I kind of think sometimes that people get too caught up in what the brand is. I think people start liking a brand because they start liking the product.
Yep.
And so that was kind of, when Whippa was available, I thought, I think that's good, that's going to be great. And we'll go with that. And there was one other thought I had, which was I didn't want to make it too confining. So I didn't want to make it like Australian outdoor packs or something, because something that was very, limiting. I thought it'd be good to have a brand where who knows where this adventure is going to go to. Obviously we're focused very much on building purpose-built packs at the moment, but who knows? Then maybe in a couple of years, 5 years' time, we might want to expand the range into some other areas, or we may not. I don't know, but at least we're not too constrained by the brand either.
Yeah, I suppose that's it, isn't it? If the brand was Whippa packs, you whether you produce other stuff or not, people just think, okay, you do packs and that's it. But Whippa, as you say, it is an Australian-sounding name, and for some reason, it reminds me of whippets or greyhounds, which is a fast and sleek. So
again, same sort of thing as the whip that I was thinking about. Yeah,
you produce these packs in Australia, and I believe it's Katoomba where everything's made.
Yeah, so we have so Summit Gear, is a store focused on running, hiking, and climbing, and above the store is our factory. So they're literally made directly above our shop, and it's pretty cool. Like people are in the shop and they're like, "What's that noise?" And it's like, "Oh, there's the machines upstairs that are making the packs that you can see on the wall." And they're like, "Oh, you make packs here? That's amazing." So many customers still are blown away. Oh, I didn't think anyone made anything in Australia, and so it's kind of unique, I guess. But that's where they're made, is in the Blue Mountains in Katoomba, directly above our store at the moment.
Why was that? I mean, if you're honest about it, you could probably go to China or Vietnam and probably make these things much cheaper. Why make them in Australia?
It's a great question, and sometimes I have these arguments with myself, but I guess there's a lot of brands that have gone out there that started making some nice stuff and then all offshored it. And like I'm thinking about some of the brands that then just disappeared. They lost kind of what made them a bit special. And I guess there's a fear that if we, I think it is part of our, like I don't want people to buy a pack that's Australian made. I want them to buy the pack because I think it's the best pack. The fact that it's Australian made is kind of like it's a bonus on top, and it's also, I guess, the advantages are there are some advantages to making stuff here in Australia. One is we can change our designs fairly quickly. It's not like we make a change and that then we have to sell through 500 packs that have already been made before that change gets implemented. Yeah. We can be more flexible with the types of materials and colours and smaller volumes, and we can switch and change things quicker and adapt stuff or introduce new colours quite easy, or a new pack, without the expectation that we have to sell 600 of them in 12 months to make this whole thing work. Yeah, so there's those advantages, and I guess what then is against us is that obviously the cost is much higher to make them in Australia, and it then forces us to have a different model, because we can't really afford to have another retailer. So it's pretty much got to go directly from the factory to the end customer, because we can't really afford to be paying someone else to be selling them on our behalf. Yeah. So it limits us in some ways, but it gives us a point of difference, but it also limits us. And that's something that we just manage as best as we can. And I guess wherever I can, my plan is certainly wherever we can make the packs locally and we can find the machinists that we need, I want to make the Australian market always serve from Australia if it's possible. And at the moment, we've been really lucky. Like being in the Blue Mountains is a blessing, because there's a lot of really creative people up here. We have a lot of machinists that come from a pattern making background, or they've been on sets, movie sets, and design things there, and they learned how to sew as part of that. So we have some really creative people, and a lot of younger mothers, and not just females. We've got guys as well, and they're looking for something that's a bit more flexible, a bit closer, and it's working well at the moment.
So, what are your sewing skills like?
Yeah. Well, I got one of the machinists to teach me how to sew because what was happening is I'd be designing something and I have to keep interrupting someone to then make it. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I need to learn enough that I can do my own prototyping. So I'm not as good as the machinists that do it all the time. I mean, their skills are really amazing, but I'm good enough that I can build a prototype. I can build it all and take it out, and it won't fall apart. So it's pretty handy to be able to. It's actually something I quite enjoy. I like making stuff. I like designing stuff, and then to turn that pack out the wrong, from inside out to the right way for the first time and have a really good look at it. It's actually a lot of fun.
Okay, so take us through the process of creating a pack for the Australian market.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I guess what we're trying to do, or what our focus is we're trying to build purpose-built performance packs. And so let me just unpack that a little bit. So if you're hiking, we want to build you a pack that's really, really good at hiking, but is not a pack that you might use. There'd be better packs for ski mountaineering, for example.
Yep.
We're not trying to make one pack that can do it all, because all that ends up doing is making it quite confused, heavy. And what we're finding is people are interested in having their best adventure they can have. And, if they can get some equipment that makes it do that job easier, then that's a really attractive proposition for a lot of people, whether they're younger, who are, people that are trying to, just do amazing things, or it's older people who have had the kids leave home, they're getting back into the outdoors, and they just want to make things as easy as possible. And if they can reduce the weight of that pack, then that's great. So in my view, simplicity is a feature on these packs. So first of all, it's defining very clearly what this pack is designed to do. So if it's a hiking pack, or a ski mountaineering pack, or a climbing pack, or an alpine pack. So I'll give you an example. Recently, we were developing a ski mountaineering pack, and we start off with our own ideas and what we think would be great. What I often do is seek out, and we're lucky again in the Blue Mountains, there's so many talented people here, that seek out some real expertise, people that are top of the game in that space. So in this case, there was a guide that I knew, Killian, and he's one of Australia's most credentialed guides. He's got the international qualifications, so guides all around the world, and he does a lot of the ski mountaineering stuff. And so we started to work with him to develop this pack further and further. And so he was testing the prototypes, then coming back and telling us, we need to change this, or you need to make this buckle like unbreakable, because if someone treads on it with a crampon in these sort of conditions, it's pretty serious. So we would develop it then with someone like that, and then take it through many iterations. And then once we're confident that we have something that we think is right, then we'll release it into the market. I guess with the hiking pack, that was a little different, because we've been making hiking packs since, Summit Gear has since 1981. So we had a lot of experience already. Our whole company is full of outdoor hikers. And so we were able to develop that pack much, much easier, because we were very clear about what we thought this pack needed to do and how it needed to perform and the features that it needed to have. So that was obviously, once I did my very first pack was a climbing pack for the Matterhorn, but very quickly then we went and took that design and adapted it into a hiking pack. It's worked really well, because there are some similarities between the Summit Gear packs and the Whippa packs, but the Whippa ones have been developed, where we had a chance to say, well, let's rethink this, and how can we do it just a little bit better, make it a bit lighter, and still be able to support the sort of weights that this pack's going to need to carry comfortably. Process that we go through with many testing and iterations, and getting it out to people. Yeah,
I was going to say, I suppose that raises a couple of questions. Normally, the issue with ultralight or lightweight packs is they're not going to carry 50 kilos or 60 kilos, which I know some people, that's extreme, but they tend to be designed for lighter weights. So I know it's going to vary depending on the pack, but what sort of weights are you looking at carrying as a hiking pack goes?
Great question. So our most popular pack is the Overland 60. So it's a 60-litre hiking pack, so suitable, perfect for the Overland, a 5-day hike.
Yep.
So that one's, rated up to like that 18 to 20 kilo mark as the demarcation. If people are going to carry more than that, and believe me, even in the ultralight world, there are people like pack rafters that are going out on big expeditions. They've got their pack raft. They're looking for like a 90-litre pack, or maybe even a little bit bigger, 100 litres, because they're going out for 10 days and they've got their pack raft. So that one, we've developed a second pack called the Wallamai 90, and we developed that to carry, like 25 plus kilos of load. Now, if you ask me, no matter, once you start getting over 25 kilos, it's always going to be uncomfortable. But I think this pack is amazing. Like, it only weighs 1.2 kilos, but it does carry that weight really, really well. And, to do that, we had to redevelop the whole harness system of how it works to carry the load. But, the end result was, I think we did a really good job of making an ultralight pack that can carry that 25 plus kilos of load.
No, that's fair enough. Now, one question I've got, and I'm not as technical as a lot of hikers around the place, but there is so much material selection available these days, and in fact, for some strange reason, I get emails on a regular basis, people wanting to sell me materials to make packs and tents for some reason. But how do you choose a material for a pack? I mean, price is obviously going to come into it, but you talked about Dyneema, but there seems to be more and more fabrics coming onto the market.
Yeah.
What makes you choose the fabrics you're currently using?
Yeah, so we've kind of moved a bit away from Dyneema composite fabric now. All our packs we're making are using a fabric called Ultra 200X.
Yeah,
is the main body of the pack, and we use Ultra 800X on the high wear areas. But so the reason we started to make that transition is we're finding that the abrasion resistance of the DCF was not as good as the Ultra 200X, and coming back to trying to get that sweet spot between ultralight but durable, there was like maybe 20 grams more in a square metre. This Ultra 200X was about 20 grams more per square metre than the DCF, but the abrasion resistance is second to none. And if you look at their metrics that the Ultra put out around the fabric, is they rate the abrasion resistance higher than 1000 Denier Cordura. So it was with that in mind, knowing that we want these packs to be able to go off track, we found out of all the ultralight materials that the Ultra 200X just had the best abrasion resistance. And it's a nice fabric, so it's got this woven face fabric, which I think helps with the abrasion resistance, but on the back side of it is a smooth laminate, which then means that we can tape the seams. So the fabric is waterproof, and then we go and tape all the seams that we sew to make that whole pack really weatherproof. So there was those considerations. So yes, it has to be ultralight, it has to be strong abrasion resistance. And then it's just like, well, then the money is, it's expensive material, but it's just, to me, it's like all these Dyneema type materials are all in a similar price range. So then it really is just pick the one that we think's got the best performance. And I haven't seen any fabric yet. Like, I know what the competitors use, and I haven't seen any fabric yet that I believe outperforms Ultra 200X. So we use that as our main fabric for the ultralight packs. We have, for the same company, they make another material called EPLX, and this is a 400 weight. So it's a recycled polyester, and we use that as well. So I told you before, our most popular hiking pack is the Overland 60 Ultralight. We also make an Overland 60 Light. So it's not ultralight, but it's still very light. So the ultralight, in my mind, so the 60-litre pack weighs about 980 grams, so it's less than a kilo.
Yep.
But if we make it out of this EPLX 400, it adds about 230 grams to the pack. but the material behaves very, very much the same as the Ultra material. So it's a woven face fabric, again, onto a laminate backing. So again, we can tape it. The abrasion resistance is about the same, but the fabric's about half the price. So it gives us an opportunity to put a pack out that's a little more cost effective, but still has really good performance. So that's probably the only time we've really taken into account the fact that, okay, this one's a bit cheaper, because it just gives us the ability then to make the overland pack at a price point that for some customers is more affordable.
Now, as a general thing, you produce, I think it's 3 colours, is it, for your packs?
Yeah, in the ultralight we use now we've landed on, there's the white, there's the black, and there's a gravel grey. In some packs we mix it up a bit, so there'll be black panels and white panels. Others will just be all more consistent. But we use things like the fabric that we use, like we use an ultra grid fabric on the backing, so we can play around with some of the webbing to give additional color, color options and color pops on the packs. So yeah, it's but yeah, for the main material is with these ultra fabrics, they don't come in very many colors, but it's white, black, or gravel grey.
And I'm guessing here is would grey be your most popular, or it's one of the other colours?
Well, it's funny. I would have thought so too, but a lot of people relate to ultralight being white. So people like the white, and they are, they know it's going to get dirty, but they kind of see that as a bit of a badge of honour. So white is still very popular. So it'd probably be gravel grey and white. Yeah, black is, not too far behind that as well. So I generally think we have something for everyone out of those 3 colours.
No, I think that's fair enough. I mean, I don't think there's, apart from the day packs and things like that, we tend to be, the companies tend to produce in a limited range, and it's no good producing 40 colours that you only sell one of every 3 years. So you've got to make that decision. And as you say, if the range is not there, most people will cope with just a fairly muted sort of colour, and they don't want bright pink or bright purple necessarily. So
it's funny. So that grey colour that we've recently launched, I was developing a pack recently, and I just, when I was playing around with it, I was like, I need some webbing for this pack. And I looked at the colours that we had, and we had this really bright orange, and I went and put that right next to the gravel grey, and it just popped so nicely. And it was just like, and I was like, we have to turn that into a pack. It looks so good, the 2 colours. So there is a way with the webbing and stuff to give a bit of a colour pop that I think is really, really aesthetically pleasing. So. Yeah, but it's we still do get some Dyneema fabric in, and we make that primarily on the alpine packs that where there's not trees and all sorts of stuff clawing at the pack all the time, and there's a wide range of colours. I can get pretty much any colour in that material, and so we are playing with some of the alpine packs, and we've done a pack with in a collaboration with a lady called Ali Pepper, who's she's Australia's most successful mountaineer. She's currently doing a project to be the first Australian woman to summit all 14 highest peaks without supplemental oxygen. So she's had a blue pack. She's now got one called Golden Goddess, Black Beauty, and that's a beautiful golden DCF colour that we're going to launch probably in the next couple of weeks.
I suppose that people may not be aware that Dyneema really was created for the sailing industry and creating sails. So I'm guessing there's probably a huge number of colour ranges for that industry, which transfers over to people like you that use this sort of colours for other things. So
yeah, that's right. So I think maybe with the Dyneema fabrics, with the packs that are suitable for that sort of material, we're sort of starting to think about maybe each year we might launch a limited, like a colour that's only going to be available that year. Keep it fresh and interesting that way.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. In relation to the manufacturing process, going back a step there, you've obviously got your processes down pat. You've obviously, I'm not saying a production line, but you obviously measure the material, cut the material, sew it together, and do all those sort of things.
Yeah.
I was going to say, how long does that actually take to make a typical pack?
So one of the ultralight packs is about 4 hours of sewing time. There's probably another 45 minutes. These are kind of general numbers, about 45 minutes of cutting and collating. So just if you think about all the components that go on a pack, so you've got to cut all the panels, you've got to get all the components, you've got to get all the webbing lengths, all the buckles, everything. And so that all gets collated and then gets handed to, the process we kind of have is like I've been to some factories overseas and I see the sort of processes that they have, and there's one person who's sitting in front of this machine, he's sewing this panel onto this panel, and that's all he does, right? If I did that to my machinist, I wouldn't have any. So, I just can't do it. It's like, so the way we sort of manage it is we basically say, look, we expect over a week that this is about the sort of volume of packs that, a person a skilled machinist should be able to get through. And so we pretty much just put on in their, essentially their pigeonhole enough packs for the week, and then they go and make that. And they can, the advantage of that is they can kind of help manage their own time, because they kind of know, okay, by the end of this week, my shelf has to be clear, and these are all turned into packs. But we're looking at about 4 hours a pack to actually do the machining, and then maybe 45 minutes of cutting and collating in the front end of it.
Okay, now let's go on to a bit more broader about the range. So you produce a hiking pack, you produce a range of climbing packs. What other ranges do you tend to cater for?
Obviously, hiking's the biggest market. So then we have our 35-litre climbing pack, which is more like a day climbing pack, perfect for like Chamonix. Where you land in Chamonix, you've got big long days, and you want something light and comfortable. Maybe you can carry 7 or 8 kilos really, really comfortably. So we have the climbing range. So we have a 35 and a 55 litre there. We developed a high-end mountaineering pack. So that's called the Alpine AP, after Ali Pepper, who we worked with to develop this pack. And then we have 3 hiking packs that we make. And we then went and did the ski mountaineering pack, which was quite a project. And I'm super proud of that pack. It's a fantastic pack. Recently, we were at the Backcountry Ski Festival the other week, and I had a bit of a display there, and people came in on the Saturday night for dinner to this event hub. And literally from 5:30 when they started coming in till we got kicked out at night, there was a line of people wanting to come and talk to me about the pack. So there's a lot of interest in it. We sold quite, a few of them that night. So we've got the ski mountaineering pack, and we're currently working on. We're probably up to prototype number 5 on. It's quite a specific pack, but it's a multi-pitch climbing pack. And so that's a current project that we're working on.
Okay, so let's talk more about the hiking packs in detail. So pack-wise, what sort of size range have you got in the hiking packs?
Yep, so we start off with the Overland 40, so it's a 40 litre. It's perfect for, good day hikes. If you're really, really frugal, you could probably do an overnight hike with it. Probably someone like yourself who knows how to pack really well might be able to do an overnight nighter with it. Then we bump up to the Overland 60, and we have that in the ultralight version and the light version. And then we have the Wallamai 90 litre, and that's that extra load carrying capacity. Now with the 60 litre, there's one other pack that we have. There's a very, we did another collaboration. So we like to do collaborations with people that are out there doing stuff, right? And there was a lot of people may know of Scotty's Gone Walkabout. And I saw him using an American ultralight pack, and I was like, I can't have that. Let me have a chat with him. And he said, yes, I'd love to support an Australian company. So he started using our pack. And he came back to us and said, for his types of trips, he normally does like 3 or 4 day trips, something more around 50, 55 litres was perfect for him. And so we developed the Colo 55, which is very similar to the Overland 60. It's just got a few little changes and modifications to it, but it's slightly smaller pack and slightly different proportions to it. So that's the range. So a 40, a 55, a 60 and a 90. And all the packs, whether they're like the 55, the 60 and the 90 all have an optional, what we call an optional expedition hood. And this is a brain that you can put on top of the pack and attach it very easily. And people can choose whether they want it or not. You know, they don't have to take it, but it's an option that people can buy. And the reason we did that is because you build a 60-litre pack and someone would come in and say, oh, is 60 enough? Maybe I need 65. And some people also like the extra organisation of a hood that sits on top of a pack. So it seemed to make sense. Look, let's build, like, if someone wants a little bit of extra capacity, they can get the expedition hood that sits on top of it. So that will take a 60-litre pack and make it roughly 70 litres, or the 55 will become a 60-litre pack, or the 90 will become a 100-litre pack if you put the optional hood on them.
Do you do one for the small pack as well, or that's?
No, we haven't done one for the small pack, and I guess the thought process there was, if you think you're going to need it, we've ummed and ahed about it, but we haven't done it. It's like, maybe then just get the 55 and just fit everything in there. But there could be an argument for it. Like, as I said, some people do like the extra organisation that a hood can make. So I'm not ruling it out, but we haven't done it yet.
No, that's fair enough. And that brings us on to the fact your packs are roll top, aren't they?
Yeah, so we went with the roll top design. I guess the first reason was from my perspective, it was the lightest way to close the pack. So being in the ultralight space, trying to keep it below a kilo for the 60-litre pack, it just seemed like the obvious solution. And it's quite simple. You know, there's not much that can go wrong with it. There's no zippers that can break. I guess, again, trying to fit into that being ultralight but also durable, the roll top seemed like the best option. And then, as I said, if people do want a hood that can go on top of the roll top, then we have a solution for that.
Okay. Now, speaking of the hood to go on top of the roll top, what you do other accessories for the packs as well? Yeah,
so we've started to expand our range of accessories, and this comes from feedback that we had. So I mentioned the pack that we developed with Whippa. So she was climbing, was it K2 or Makalu? I can't remember. It was one of those mountains. And the first pack she got, she had the optional hood. And she came back to us and said, look, I don't need the optional hood and I want to keep things as light as possible. But what would be really useful, because all our packs have a weatherproof large stash pocket at the front of it where you can put your layers of clothing and stuff that you like. And it just closes with a buckle closure. And she said, but what would be really good is I want to have something that can go into that pocket but absolutely be secure. So we developed like an ultralight secure pouch that we've got little clips in that pocket and you can just clip this pouch in there. And, you know, it's made out of a Dyneema fabric. We tape all the edges. It's got a little key holder in there. It's got a weatherproof zipper across the front of it. And it's just a place where you can put all your accessories or little things. And then at night, you can just easily unclip it out of that pocket and take it into the tent with you, or take it to the bathroom with you, or whatever you like. So that was something that came from her, and that's proved to be a really popular accessory. I mentioned earlier that I have a trail running background, so I'm very comfortable and I like using soft flasks. And, you know, so we've made a soft flask holder that can easily mount onto the shoulder strap. So if people like to use soft flasks, we have a solution for that. And then we make ultralight organisation pouches that you can then, again, all made out of DCF. You can put them inside the bag to just organise your stuff. They're super light. We use it like a water-resistant zipper on them. Again, we tape all the seams. But yeah, there's a range of accessories that we have for our hiking packs that people can get.
Now, where to next for the Whippa brand?
Yeah, it's a great question. We find ourselves at an interesting crossroads right now. Like, I remember just before I was about to launch Whippa, I remember I was having a call with a New South Wales business consultant, But and I was like, what if no one buys any of these things, and she said, oh, you'll be fine, it'll be right. And to sell the very first pack was just really humbling. I was like, wow, here's someone handing over cold hard cash for something that we've developed all in-house. And you feel a large amount of responsibility with that. And the brand has really started to take off. So in the last couple of months, we're starting to see quite a growth in the packs. So right now it's about adding as much capacity as we can to our manufacturing. And I think it's so great because, like, when we develop a pack, I didn't even mention that we built Canyon packs and stuff like that. But when we developed these packs, and we'd go and, you have to then market them and create content. And so we're hiring local guides that are using these packs, and local, videographers that are filming these packs, and you see all this bubbling around the whole Blue Mountains community, and I just think it's fantastic. Having this economic activity that's just building in the community. That there's not a huge amount of industries in the Blue Mountains, and so if we can do something that sort of helps create people's livelihoods in a space where people want to live, then I think that's amazing. But so right now it's really focusing on capacity and scaling up a bit more. I've got to start thinking about, okay, where are we going to be in 2 years, 3 years' time? And are the premises that we currently have, are they going to be sufficient? And I think not. So I've got to start thinking about that, like where are we going to move the manufacturing to? Like, I want to keep it in the Blue Mountains, but maybe we just need a bigger premise somewhere, and maybe not directly above the shop. So, because we're just going to outgrow it, and it's only a matter of time. The other idea I have at the moment is I've been getting a lot of. It's amazing. Like we're getting orders from overseas, like from Canada, from the US, which blows me away because there's so many options over there. Great Britain, Europe, New Zealand, and I'm like, where are people finding us? But they've just found it on Instagram and things like that, and then people are purchasing these stuff. But we're getting a lot of inquiries from Canada because of all the issues that they're having with America at the moment, and the whole tariffs and being talked about as the 51st state is creating quite a lot of strong emotions in Canada, and we're getting a lot of requests. People saying, have you thought about bringing your packs to Canada? And seeing that they're starting to really resonate here in Australia, and there's no reason I don't think these packs could resonate over there as well. So that's something in my head that I'm thinking about, is maybe we could take Whippa into international, which would be really, really cool and exciting. But it's early stages for that. But right now, as I said, we're developing our multi-pitch climbing pack. After that, I think we're going to be starting to look at some fast packs. So sort of people that want to kind of run with their pack, maybe over 4 days type thing, and take a small amount of gear with them. We're looking at maybe developing fast packs. And I guess then beyond that, the question starts coming about, well, what about tents and things like that? And that's just a whole new, that just blows my mind at the moment. I can't get my head around it right now, because I just feel like we really want to just focus in and solidify what we've developed here in the pack space. But, over time, who knows?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. It's sort of sometimes it's good to take things slowly and get it right rather than rush it, then have to backtrack and say it again.
I'm over taking big risks. I'm 53. I've done that when I was younger, and it doesn't always work. So I don't have the sort of hubris that maybe I had when I was younger, where I thought I could do anything. So I am a bit more cautious these days. But I do want to give, there's no doubt that it's an interesting brand that people are starting to resonate with, and I want to give it the best opportunity it can to succeed. So keep taking the small steps that we're taking, and but maybe have a bit of a view of where we're going to be in 2 or 3 years' time, and start planning on that.
No, that's fair enough. So one final question, as someone who works in the outdoor industry and owns a manufacturing process, and retailer as well, do you ever
Yeah.
get to spend much time in the outdoors? And if so, what's your next great adventure?
So I do. So as I mentioned, I do a lot of trail running. So generally, I'm not walking; I'm running everywhere. But my next big adventure, where it does the dream I have is to make my passion and my work all sort of intermingled, so that it doesn't feel like I'm working. And when things are going well, and I'm working on Whippa and stuff like that, it's just I love it. So what I'm thinking about is going to New Zealand. I mentioned that we did a collaboration on the ski mountaineering pack with a guide called Killian, and so we're kind of been talking about in October heading over to New Zealand, doing a bit of a traverse of the Tasman Glacier over there, and going sort of combining hiking, ski mountaineering, splitboarding, mountaineering, all in one kind of epic. And it would be a great opportunity to get a bunch of content that we can put out for our socials and for our website. I think it's always great using me being out there. Like, I design these things. It's so useful being out there using it in those conditions. And you learn so much, and you realise how important good design is, because it has to work. It has to work with gloves when it's cold and the wind is whipping at you and all that sort of stuff, and everything's icing up and all that sort of stuff. So I just think, so that could be my next adventure, is heading over to New Zealand in October.
Okay, so we've been talking to Rob from Whippa Packs. Rob, thanks for taking the time to talk to us about this awesome product.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So that was our interview with Rob from Whippa about the Whippa Pack range. And if you already haven't done so, go to the Australian Hiker website and the show notes for podcast 327. And there's some photos on there, including of Rob, so you can put a face to the name, and also some social media handles and the website as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I'd been aware of Whippa Packs for the last couple of years, and it was just a matter of chance where Rob contacted me a few months ago and asked me if I'd be keen to do a podcast and to test out some packs. And I am, actually, because we are so focused on getting ultralight gear out of the US and to a much lesser extent out of the UK.
And Europe.
Well, no, not really. It's really the UK, and it's really the US is where the bulk of them are made. So the Europeans don't seem to be into the ultralight gear, or at least manufacturing it. And I think the costings when you're getting them from overseas tends to be rather expensive. So it's good to have an Australian pack manufacturer of ultralight gear. Now, in talking to Jill about this just before we started doing this interview, the comment was that just because it's Australian doesn't mean it's good quality. But I think, looking at these packs, they look like they're really well made. And, and Rob was saying that each pack takes around about 4 to 5 hours, including sewing and cutting. So I think, the whole concept of having an Australian-made pack and a well-made pack, and Rob was actually saying that he is struggling to keep up with the demand.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think he did say that he wanted to be known for good quality packs rather than necessarily Australian made. And we do know, there are products in Australia that we, want to buy, but potentially not as good as other options. But in this case, you've got the best of both worlds.
So Whippa's logo is lighter, stronger, better. And again, that's a good motto to have. Is it's not just light, it's not just strong. It's how do they make the pack better? And he certainly does the testing process. and gets, you said hiking is a bit easier because a lot of people hike, but particularly for the mountaineering and the climbing and the canyoning, he's getting people who are into that full time and saying, what do we need out of these products to make it work for you? So as I said, we'll be testing a couple of packs over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Looking really good at the moment. We haven't actually gone out and gone hiking with them yet, but they look like they're good, well-made packs. And again, from our perspective, they're nice and light as well. And
they are well made, but also quite pared down. And we've talked about that during the interview. For me, this thing about what exactly do you actually need, and sometimes you get a pack and it's got all of these bits hanging off, and even just a standard pack with a few bits hanging off, I just don't even use them.
No, it's better off to start off with less and add things on, and Whippa certainly give you that option. They have some additional add-ons, and they're building that range up as people identify what's available. Now, ultralight packs, when you tend to see them wherever they come from, the main colours you see from a worldwide perspective tend to be grey and also white. And white seems to be becoming more and more common, even though white has the potential to get a lot dirtier. And partly the reason for that, it tends to be more based around the materials. Rob was saying they're using a material called Ultra, and Ultra is probably one of the biggest used materials in high-grade and lightweight packs in the world at the moment. He also uses Dyneema, which was previously known as Cuban fibre.
Yeah.
And that was a product that came out of the sailing industry, and they still are used quite heavily in the sailing industry. So when you think about the colours of sails, Dyneema is available in a lot bigger range of colours, whereas the Ultra, Rob was saying he uses the grey, the white, and the black, and there probably are a couple of others, but there's not a huge range. And I think that's not a bad thing, because sometimes we have too much choice. When you can get 15 different colours, people, Australians in particular, tend to be we tend to be a bit of a boring bunch. We buy black.
We love black.
We love black down jackets or blue down jackets. The really colourful, airy sort of stuff doesn't tend to sell as well. Although that's the stuff I love, and it's hard to get sometimes. While we're still talking about materials, Rob did say that in some of his packs he makes them in different options. So he has a light and an ultralight version, and the ultralight version is obviously lighter in material. I think he was saying it was around about 20 grams per square metre less weight, but it's also cheaper. It's also more expensive as well. You're paying for the lightness of the fabric. So he said pretty much in some of his packs he does the same pack using different materials. One pack's the lightweight one is a bit heavier, but it's also cheaper. So if you want all the features and the functions and you want a relatively lightweight pack without being ultralight, you've got that option without having to break the bank to get something that may be beyond your needs if you're only hiking a few times a year. Now, these packs are a roll top pack, which is not unusual, particularly for ultralight packs. And so instead of having a brain that comes over the top, you basically just put the edges close together and just roll them up and clip them close. That makes them easier to keep a bit lighter in weight. And it means that depending on how much gear you have in your pack, if you're not so heavily geared up, you can sort of roll it down a bit. Or if you are carrying a lot, you can sort of roll it up a bit, as long as you don't you've got to have...
You want it sealed reasonably well.
Yeah. And the materials, they are seam-sealed materials. So, you've got a large hole in the top where you get stuff in and out of, but they are relatively waterproof. Although in discussing with Rob, he said, look, if you're carrying lots of camera gear and expensive electronics, he still does suggest you wear or use a pack liner.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've always done. But he said you probably don't need to have a pack cover. So in my case, with my current packs, I use a pack liner
and a pack cover,
and a pack cover as well as the pack itself. With these packs, you have the ability to sort of at least lose that pack cover sort of layer. Unsurprisingly enough, Rob said his biggest selling pack is the 60-litre Overland. I think that's if I get the naming right on the model there. And pretty much anecdotally, when I see people out on trail, they're using a pack that's around about that 60 to 65 litre mark. It just seems to be the size that everyone opts for. Now, whether you need to go for that sort of size, I mean, for me, my biggest individual thing, ignoring snow camping, but my biggest individual bulk inside my pack is food. So for each day of food, that's what's going to limit it. So I can actually get away with a 36-litre pack with 4 days of food. But if I want to carry 8 or 9 days of food, the pack's definitely not big enough. 4 days is about the limit.
Yeah, but the other thing is, because it's such a lightweight pack, you don't have to fill it, whereas some of the other packs of that size, if you don't fill it, it doesn't work quite as well, because, this one has the roll top, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of compress down, if you like, but a standard pack, it's a much more difficult option.
Yeah. So you've got that ability. And as Rob said in the interview, he is starting to make accessories for packs. So certainly they do an expedition hood, which is essentially a pack brain on the larger packs, so the 55 or the 60 and the 90-litre pack, and that just gives you that extra capacity. He said he hasn't done it yet for the 40-litre pack, but he said he'll never say never on that one if someone pesters him enough for one. And I think from my perspective, I do like having the functionality of a pack brain.
Well, it's a bit more convenient, I guess, other than, having to unroll everything to...
Yeah, but for me more so, it's about the electronics and the blogging. If that's pretty much what I keep in my hood, my pack brain. So if I wasn't doing blogging and podcasting, I'd probably end up losing most of that.
No, you'd probably find another reason. Absolutely, that's the way it goes.
But it is an option, so you can actually get it and decide whether you want to use it or not.
Yeah,
and that's going to increase the volume of the pack as well. He's saying they're also making some internal pockets, and I suppose the best way to call it is a security pocket. It zips up, it's got a little key holder, and he said that one's actually made of Dyneema. And if you've ever seen Dyneema, it's almost like thin plastic, basically.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
It's thin, essentially thin plastic material, but it's ultra durable.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, the downside of the Dyneema is it's not very good with abrasion. So Rob was saying that, you're better off going for a slightly heavier grade material, and he did mention that the heavier grade material is available, and that stands up a bit better to dragging it through the bush, and getting stabbed with trees and bits of vegetation. So really, you've got to look at what you're going to be doing with these sort of packs. But he does make them to be as durable as he possibly can. And it was interesting. I mean, not that it's necessarily a hiking-related process. He was saying that he supplies some of the rescue helicopters and the rescue organisations. And he said from them it was a weight issue, that, when you've got a helicopter, you've got a maximum payload, and things tend to be getting heavier and heavier these days across the board. So they wanted to be able to drop weight. So he said he was going away from producing canvas-based packs for them to producing these, using these ultra lightweight materials.
Yeah, I guess that they wanted to drop weight for a range of reasons, including they probably wanted to put other things in the place of the weight that they were dropping as well, other equipment and other essential needs.
Okay, we hope you've enjoyed this overview of Australian pack manufacturer Whippa. As we said, we will be going through and releasing some reviews of a couple of packs in probably about the next 4 to 6 weeks after this podcast comes out. So we're looking forward to actually trying them out. But as I said, go to the show notes for this podcast, have a look at their social media, have a look at their website, see if there's something that might be of interest for you as well. That's all for me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode brought to you by Australian Hiker. Bye for now.
And bye from me.